Good morning, Shaileen.
Morning, Khalil.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are the little princesses and
Uh,
coping with the lockdown?
they're both well. They're both well. One's growing up very quickly. The other one, we need to keep her occupied. So apologies. I am working from home. So if one does
No,
decide,
no, no, it's fine. All of us are working from home, so there is nothing to apologize about. On
yeah,
the contrary, thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your expertise today in terms of how you can help and we can help businesses grow during the pandemic. But before we start, can you please tell us a little bit about you?
sure. Born and raised in East Africa, in Mombasa, to be precise. I moved here in 2002. So I spent half my life being brought up in Kenya with my family around me. Uh, I qualified as an accountant in 2009 and have been in small practices ever since. I had a 2-year stint with one of the large four companies where I spent some time around their tax team. But I came back home to what I believe is where I want to be and where I want to help businesses.
mm, Brilliant. And this is where you became a partner at Priceman.
That's right. Yeah. So in 2017, I left my job at the Big Four and I rejoined Priceman as a partner.
Very interesting and challenging. What was, how did you manage the courage to take this big step? Because this is an important part of your story that I think it's worth sharing.
So for me, I think being at a larger organization, uh, I never get the sense of satisfaction dealing with businesses at that level. For me, it was all about the person, and the why. Effectively, the question that you asked me, why did I become a partner? I tend to ask clients, why are you making your move into that particular business, or why did you set up this business, or what was your why? For me, it was that, and it was a satisfaction of serving clients and helping individuals generally. Combine that with a sense of having, from a personal level, supposedly more time with family. Uh, we all know as business owners that's never the case. The grass does look greener on the other side, but actually, do I have any regrets or any? No, I would do this all over again in a heartbeat, even in today's climate.
I'm glad that it is satisfactory. And actually, this is a great entry point to the main subject, which is currently we know that we have been in a lockdown for the past 2 months. And there are lots of business challenges, business closures. Currently, I know that the government has provided lots of initiative or started lots of initiatives for different parts of the economy to help businesses, self-employed, all of that. But from your perspective as a leading accountant, um, how are you helping? How are you dealing, first of all, with the lockdown with your employees? I know that you have a big staff in your office or a big team in your office. But how are you coping personally, and how are you helping businesses and business owners at this stage?
So I'll take the first question. In terms of the team, we as an organization are very fortunate that we can effectively carry on business as normal. Yes, the efficiencies have dropped slightly, but that's expected. The entire team is fully remote and fully working. We have our daily catch-ups, and we're all in the picture, sort of working towards the same goal, which is to serve our clients. Um, so from that perspective, we are very fortunate that we've not had to sort of, we don't feel like things have changed for us apart from not physically being in the office.
Mm.
In terms of clients, look, um, we are in challenging times. They are difficult times, and actually the road's going to get even more difficult going forward.
Mm.
For us, or for our clients in particular, we are saying to them, look, cash is king. You've
Yeah.
got to start forecasting and projecting, what's going to happen. And it is difficult because we don't know when the actual lockdown is going to end, when things will get back to normal. And in fact, will things ever get back to normal? So we are planning with clients, we are sitting down with clients, and trying to work out their cash flow position and where they will stand and what they need to do to get there.
Mm.
And it's having that sounding board. I've had a client that's called me up and said, look, Shaileen, what if I do X? I said, that's a brilliant idea,
Mm.
but have you thought of X, Y, and Z? And it actually worked out that it's flown through in those steps, and it's giving the clients the sense of business and saying, look, this is absolutely fine on the surface. And to be fair, that idea was perfectly fine. Just a few tweaks we had to carry out, but we work. It's all a work in progress.
Um, the, I know that cash flow is king, and cash flow is probably one of the major elements or the challenges that business owners are facing. Have you noticed any other challenges, or how are you coping with their cash flow? Probably default payments, if there is any, because I've talked to quite a few accountants, and there is, it seems, a lot of default payments or delay in payments, let's put it in that way, but possibly because of the different closures. How are you dealing with that, before I go into my second question?
Well, that's fine. Um, I think the key is communication, and it's got to work both ways. If you feel you're struggling to pay something, reach out to to the organization or the individual and say, look, hey, I'm struggling. What can we do? And more often than not, everyone's human, everyone's reasonable about it, everyone's in this together.
Yeah.
And a simple conversation and saying, look, we're going to make this. So we're seeing that a lot. I mean, you talk about that. We're seeing that a lot with tenants not paying landlords. And more often than not, landlords are saying, look, instead of paying us quarterly, pay us monthly, and take each month as it goes. We've had some landlords telling tenants that, look, if you're going to get paid 80%, pay us 80% for now. We'll worry about the remaining 20% at a later date. So it's all about having that dialogue, and don't be scared to start it.
Interesting. That's an interesting thought of sharing and understanding. Communication definitely is key. I've also, from a business perspective, and talking also to different businesses and business owners, I think there is a little bit of, I don't want to say lack of understanding of the different government initiatives and how to go about them, or what would fit what, which business owner would benefit from that, how they can benefit from the different grants and loans and the offerings that the government is having to at least sustain at this stage or survive, and then potentially in few months' time when the lockdown is eased. And I know that we, since yesterday, some businesses, they have noticed some easing of the lockdown, for them to stand up and survive and thrive.
So it's an ever-changing world. I mean, uh, I was doing some work on Monday morning, uh, Tuesday. Sorry, apologies, Tuesday, and I suddenly had a message from on my mobile saying the furlough scheme's been extended. So again, the goalposts are moving, and again, it's across even the banks. You know, we've been doing cash flow projections for clients for loans, for business loans under the government schemes, and the banks are changing their goalposts, and that's because everyone's sort of going through the guidance very quickly. I must say, a lot of the larger organizations, which I thought were very rigid, have adopted themselves very quickly. But if I can share something with you
Please,
on the screen.
yes, please do. That would be lovely and useful.
Yeah, so we did this little flow chart,
Mm,
or and we were trying to sort of at that time trying to get clients to understand where they are. So it was almost like, well, if you were self-employed,
mm,
there was this self-employment help, but
mm.
in order for you to gain that help, you needed to have made sure you've done your 2019 tax return. So we were trying to give clients some little pointers as to what to do, because the legislation is
Yes.
very detailed.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Please take us through it. It's very useful, I think, to everyone.
Yeah, so I must admit, a lot of these are now known, because we did this fairly early in April, or towards the end of March even. So if you're a self-employed individual, the portal to make the claim is now open. You should have your government gateway, and you just literally need your tax reference and your national insurance number, and you should be able to make the claim if you're eligible.
Mm.
The gateway is designed very well by HMRC in that it tells you if you are, and if you are, it will take you on to the next steps.
Okay.
If you are a VAT registered business, the VATs that were for February, March, and April, so that would be payments due up to the end of, up to the 7th of June, will
Mm.
not be collected by HMRC, or rather there's a deferment for that purpose. But again, it's the little bits that says, you know, cancel your direct debit, otherwise HMRC will collect it. If you cancel it, the payment needs to be made by 31st of March 2021. If you are employed, you are entitled to the whole furlough. I think the furlough scheme is very well talked
Yes.
about. And I think, well, the money has started to come through now. So in fact, we're making our second claims for our clients, where for the month of May, we started to make the claims to get the refunds from the government, and they're pretty quick to come back.
Yeah.
Again, as employers, you know, you need to just make sure that, you know, a little bit of a sort of background in terms of you needed to be under 250 employees to claim the furlough scheme. Uh, you, you know, if you dismiss staff in March, you can bring them back on to keep them in a job so that they get some income. And we've had some clients that had, you know, it was planned that they were going to be doing this in February, that got rid of staff for various reasons rather than COVID-19. They've been kind enough to bring the staff back on so that the staff can, you know, receive this grant money, and then, you know, once it's done, things will move on from there. As far as all other businesses, again, the key one, if you have insurance, check if you can make the claim. I mean, the insurance companies have been very tight but it's worth checking if you can. Again, if you're struggling to pay the HMRC, it's all about having that conversation with them. At the time of writing this, the bounce back loan scheme wasn't open.
Mm.
So I think that scheme's been brilliant. It's released, you know, the £50,000 up to £50,000 very quickly
Yeah.
at a very good rate.
Yes.
I must at this point warn you, because yes, although it's government backed, like the banks do, it's got to be paid back by you first, and they will try and get that money off you first. So be careful, again, project cash flow. Yes, we've seen people think it's cheap money, let's take it.
Mm.
Take it, but you've got to be careful about making sure that you're able to pay
You
it
have to
back.
make sure that you return it.
Yeah, well, able to pay it back, because you don't want to have that burden on you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Shailene, just a couple of questions. So you've mentioned here that it is up to 250 employees. What about those big companies? Example, like the airlines or
so they can furlough. Sorry, the 250 is this, as the statutory sick pay. Sorry.
okay.
So the statutory sick pay of 2 weeks fully, sort of, as opposed to having the first 3 days unpaid, you would get the full 2 weeks paid at the statutory rate, I must emphasize.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that. Another question, for example, what happens to newly established companies that haven't filed, they didn't file their returns in 2019, or they have started business in April 2019, or they were not making enough money? I know that it is opening a business is something, and especially in the first couple of years, it requires lots of investment and lots of pumping in of resources. So with the COVID-19 taking place and the economic turndown at this stage, can they benefit from any schemes? Is there anything available for them?
So look, the government has tried to help, and it's tried to help. I think it started off by helping employees first, because majority of the people in the country are employed. Obviously, I strongly believe the self-employed or the owner-managed businesses are the backbone of our economy.
Yeah.
The government later, and credit to the Chancellor, probably recognized that, and created the self-employed scheme. Off the back of that, unfortunately, if you started a business or you never filed a 2019 tax return, you fell through the cracks.
Mm.
And therefore you wouldn't be eligible for the direct help that came through from the furlough or the self-employed schemes. There is help with the bounce back loans. I think up to £50,000, because if you started, I understand banks are saying it's got to, they're happy to accept projected turnover. So, you've got to have the projected turnover of whatever you've planned. And you would have that in a business plan, because it's sensible, it would have been sensible, and it should have been done, to have a business plan in place before you started the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
from experience is that lots of businesses, they do the business plan, and then there is a pile of dust on top of it once they start the business. And
well, so this is what I was just going to say, that you and I both know that there's a lot of businesses that don't have a business plan, number one, and there's a lot of businesses that have created a plan and parked it aside. At this point, I just want to sort of say that, they should jump on to have a chat with you about, the 90-day plans, etc., that you have conducted. And I was fortunate enough to attend a couple of your sessions, and I walked away with real value in that. And, for me, there were some eye openers, because I am guilty of that. I created my business plan in 2016-17. And I parked it aside because, actually work got on top of you. But
which is don't like blame yourself. This is for different businesses. We have got into the business rather than working, as they say, on the business. So that is absolutely fine. But there is always starting again and taking the first steps again is always good.
Well, and it's important. I think using this time where, especially if you're at home stuck and not being able to work, it's how do you, how do you use this time to pivot your business?
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, excellent. I think we've covered. Are there any other tips that you would like to share? This is a very informative and detailed session, Shailene. Um, is there any other tips that you would give to self-employed or limited companies or different
Yeah.
companies?
So generally for owner managed businesses, just a few pointers to note, and I think some of them are a bit somber about, but I'll just point them out. Look, cash flow, project your cash flow. I think it's important to do it. If you need a template on Excel, please reach out. If you need help uh, drafting it or reviewing it, please again reach out to
Just
us.
sorry for the interruption, but your details are on top of your screen or that you're sharing. So
Yeah,
the telephone number that they can share, that they can get in touch with you is 0208 204 2228.
that's right. Yeah.
And the email is info@priceman.co.uk.
Yes, that's right. I will also share it on the sort of comment section on Facebook
Okay.
if anyone wants to reach out on that. I think the other thing is, have you looked at your personal finances on your side? Have you revisited all your expenditure? Are you paying for things unnecessarily? Check that. Have you got your wills in place? Now, we ourselves don't write wills, but we work with solicitors that do.
Mhm.
So again, if you need your will written, uh,
Important tip. Thank you. Yeah.
I think I
Personal
think that
finance and wills.
yeah, I think that that's very important. A lot of people forget about that, and I don't know what the statistics are with people dying without a will. And again, I don't want to talk about that angle because I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
be positive. But I think it's important to make sure you've
It's
drawn up a
part of the planning, to be honest. So it's absolutely
absolutely,
relevant.
absolutely, yeah. Uh, I think those are the key points really: cash flow and make sure your wills are in place, and also revisit your expenses.
Just to re-summarize, cash flow is king, as Shailene has mentioned, and it is one of the most important things that you need to take care of on a business level, but also, as Shailene has mentioned, on a personal level. Make sure that you have a will in place. Work on your business plan because if you don't have the right business at this stage, banks are happy to look at your projections. um, so, and if you need any further clarification on that, Shailene is there to help. You can reach out to Shailene on the numbers that we have just talked about. The email is info@priceman.co.uk. Shailene, that is a wonderful conversation. Do you have any exciting news that you would like to share or upcoming events that you would like to share?
So we're in the process of sort of finalizing an event for cash flow, and to talk specifically more on uh, how to sort of cash flow and pivot out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Again, it's all about ideas and bouncing ideas off one another. So I will be sharing the link and that in due course once dates are finalized. Um, we're also in the process of looking at organizing estates, and this is more for the sort of high net worth individuals, perhaps, or the landlords, and that need to consider inheritance tax
Mm.
and how to, uh, because actually that's one area we didn't talk about, but how to sort of organize your estate, because um, as a firm of accountants, we're also now authorized to do probate work, and that's something that we
Okay.
we started in February 2019, and we haven't heavily.
That's the question then. Otherwise, we wouldn't have tapped into it.
No, absolutely. It's not something that we've gone out very heavily marketing, you know, it's there. We are there. We're starting on that journey ourselves as a business. Um, both my business partner Bharat and I are qualified to do so, and we've got a team around us as well that's sort of, you know, that assists us. But one of the most common questions we get, or the most common pitfalls that we see, are, you know, when someone dies, they, you know, the family members don't know where the paperwork is, or they don't know everything that's there. Number one, and number two, off the back of that, if there's inheritance tax to pay, there's always, well, how do I get the money? Because the money is locked away in assets that are not liquid. So we're working on that to come up with a strategy, and each case is different. So again, you know, if anyone's interested in having that conversation with us, we're in the process of finalizing a date for a webinar. But if you don't want to wait for the webinar, just get in touch with us, and we're happy to have a chat.
Fantastic. It's great that you have shed some light on the probate part of the business. Not many accountants usually talk about that. They restrict themselves to the accountancy, different types of work. But that's, if someone would like to know more about the probate and how Shaileen can help them, definitely they can reach out. Thank you so much, Shaileen, for today. That is brilliant. I think there were lots of golden nuggets in there, and thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you, and thanks, Khalil, for having me and pestering me to come and do this.
My pleasure.
I hope I sincerely hope it helps, you know, the listeners and the viewers, you know, and even if it's one thing that comes out of it, you know, I feel like I've done something good.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will, definitely. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.